Hi, welcome back to the Project Tree Collard YouTube channel. I'm Sequoia, and today's video is long awaited. I'm really excited about it. It's about the Michigan Tree Collard plant. So here we are with a big row of it. And I grow it all together in a huge row because I'm a nursery business. I need a lot of cuttings. You might just have one plant or a couple of them. And they might not even be together in a row, but here we are on a tree collard farm. So they're all here for my ease in care, and it's a great example for you to see what its habit is like. These are a couple years old, and they're around 4 feet tall or so. I have cut them a bunch, but you can see they're a very beautiful silvery color. They're generally quite upright. There's a couple little pieces that kind of bend down occasionally in the wind or the rain or whatever, but generally it's a very well-behaved, easy to care for, kind of vertical but small tree collard, as tree collards go. So the history on this one is kind of a fun story. Back about 7 years ago when I started Project Tree Collard, I was selling Purple Tree Collard seeds, and this man I didn't know, Ken Asmus from Oikos Tree Crops Nursery near Kalamazoo, Michigan, bought a whole lot of my purple seeds. And what he did is he kept seeding them out and planting them outdoors in Michigan and in hoop houses and things to see how these did in Michigan, because up until that point in time, no one had ever advertised a tree collard that was commercially available that did well in cool climates. So in Kalamazoo, Michigan, it's kind of on the border of zones 5 and 6. So he found a couple varieties, and this is one of them, that tolerated those really cold winters with a lot of snow. And then later he shared the Michigan Tree Collard cuttings back with me so I could provide them to the public. And these are clonally identical to the ones he grew in the very cold Michigan. Now I'm in a slightly colder and also very hot area of the mountains in California, so a very different climate. These have done great in the amount of snow that we get here and the amount of cold that we get here, but we're in zone 9A. So it's quite a different experience. As you can see, it's a very beautiful silvery color. These are a couple years old, and they're approximately 4 feet high, although I have cut them a bit to propagate from. And I'm really excited to share this with you today. So in the last 2.5 to 3 years that I've been growing the Michigan Tree Collard plants, I wanted to say that in areas that are very hot in the summer, like it is here often up to 110, 113 for weeks at a time, and here it's very dry as well, they don't love the full sun. So now we're in very early October, and now that it's cooled down into the 80s, these plants are even happier than they were before when it was in the hundreds. But in the front, where I have some shade from trees part of the day, they did much better throughout the summer, were more edible throughout the summer than these were. Tree collards in general, just all of the varieties, taste much better in winter. They're much sweeter, so that's good to keep in mind. Another important thing to keep in mind is, depending on your zone and your microclimate and your conditions in your area, these may die down to the ground and then come back up in the spring. So they would be behaving as a deciduous perennial in that case. Anything that was above ground in the fall, when the deep cold hits, may just turn brown or die back. But then the base and the roots of the plant are still alive under there, and then they rejuvenate in the spring. So a good example of that would be something like in the flower world, like echinacea or black-eyed Susan. So they can behave like that, but they also in some places can remain evergreen and possibly be even edible through the winter. So we're all in different climates, and I also want to say that here I am in warm California compared to a lot of the people watching this video, but I think they're a great tree collard for everybody. It has its own merit as a tree collard, as a food crop, as a perennial, as something when food supplies are short, or just because you love collard cauliflower soup or making your own collard chips. This is always here for you to glean a lot of greens. I mean, look at this. I could harvest bunches every week and it would vigorously regrow. So it's a very nutritious plant, as are all the tree collards. So if you're in a northern climate and an area that has generally cooler summers, like Michigan, where it just doesn't get roasting hot ever for very long, you can grow them in full sun. But for most folks, I would recommend partial shade at some point during the day. Mine get some morning shade, and then they're in the sun in the afternoon, and they've performed really, really well. These are in full sun all day long, and it's been a bit hard on them in our really hot, dry summers. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you learned what you need to know about Michigan tree collards. I have to do a disclaimer that I'm not an expert because I don't live in zones 5 or 6 in the United States, but I have a mission, and the mission is to come up with new varieties of tree collards that perform really well for various applications. I think this one is great for Southern California or Arizona or a colder place like Ohio or wherever. If you're interested in growing the Michigan tree collard, if you get seeds, they're not going to be identical to these plants. They're going to be offspring. They're going to have other influences from other brassicas in them, but they may well be very cold tolerant, maybe even colder tolerant. And you can also grow clonal identical ones to these, as Ken did originally and shared them with me, and that would be through cutting or rooted plants that I sell at projecttreecollard.org. So thanks so much for watching. Have a great day, and please hit subscribe and like this video. Thank you.